Talk Radio, you're in to all things music.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Happy Friday, everybody. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Talk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. And I am Scott, your host, and a man who thinks that if the world is going to end tomorrow, as some people have predicted, that at least my Rams won last night on Thursday Night Football. It was a messy game. It was a thrilling game. It was a 41-39 football game. And which you don't see that often. You don't see that what I'm going to call an extraordinarily lack of defense on both sides. But if you're a fan of offense in the NFL, last night's football game was for you because it was quite a bit. And as I said, if the world does end Saturday, at least I got my football game in. You know, it's not like, oh well, we didn't quite make it to Sunday. It's like I'm good. I'm actually good. So, and with me as always is our Garth of the hour, which is going to be Cedric the Mixer today down in Intertalk Central. How's it going, Cedric?
It's going all right, Scott. How's everything going on your side?
It's good. It's good. Did you watch the football game last night by chance?
No, I did not. But, you know, if the world ends tomorrow, does that mean your Rams are in the playoffs?
Means we're in first place.
Nice.
If the world ends, that means we went out in first place in the NFC West. Suck it, Seattle Seahawks. That's what I say to you. That's what I say. Rams are number one. Number one.
Honestly, as long as like the Chargers, like I wasn't even a huge football fan, but I'm just not a big fan of Spanos right now. So if Chargers doesn't win a game this season, I would be happy. I think they won one though, but I'm not sure.
I saw a thing today. You're going to laugh because I saw a thing today. It said the NFL had, I should probably put this in winning and losing, but it said the NFL had drastically misinterpreted the signs when it moved the Chargers to Los Angeles, and they're considering moving the Chargers back to San Diego. Straight up.
I mean, I think that would be great news, but definitely management has to change. Right?
Jeez, it's just what a mess. We should have brought that into winning and losing because man, that is all kinds of stupid.
You could do a whole segment
everywhere on
all the things Dean Spanos did wrong and what you would do instead.
Join us for the next edition of May the Best Brand Win, where we analyze the communication failures of the National Football League, specifically the Spanos family.
There you go.
And the Spanos, how they did in San Diego. Well, we are here on episode 66 of the big program, and we call this one Watch Your Language. And we're going to talk about language a bit. You know, as communicators, the language we use is very important. You know, it actually does say something beyond what we're actually saying. You know, all languages are kind of shared agreements among groups of people to say that, okay, well, this word is going to stand for this, and then this phrase is going to stand for this. And it's incredibly complicated, you know, given the fact that it's really just a systematic bunch of agreements. And they sort of evolve and change quite a bit over time. So in this episode of The Big Show, we're going to talk about language, and we're going to give you some tips at the end of it to tighten up your language and maybe, you know, cut out some of the crap so that people actually, you know, agree that your language is worth paying attention to. We're also going to tackle who's winning and losing like we always do in marketing communications and have a good old time. So without further ado, let's get into language. You know, as I mentioned, you know, all language, what's fascinating about language to me is the fact that, you know, there are many different languages, you know, here on good old planet Earth. And they're all just sort of agreements that people say, that people have to say that these words are going to mean these things, that we're going to express these thoughts. And we can express ourselves in incredibly complicated ways using these this series of agreements, right? And when you think about it, language in itself is sort of a miracle. It's sort of a miracle that even though as large as the United States of America is, you know, as many people in the world, you know, that speak English, you can go, you know, anywhere somebody speaks English and utter out a sentence and they kind of understand what you mean. You know, and I think that's kind of that's kind of fascinating. And what got me kind of thinking about language was I read his article today about the order of adjectives. So did you know that you know something that you don't know you know? When we put sentences together, there's a distinct order of how we will put adjectives together in sentences. And you may not even think about this. Most people don't unless they're just real grammar geeks, about this. But there is sort of an order of adjectives. And most English speakers instinctively are going to put adjectives in the right order in sentences without really giving it much thought. We're sort of taught that way, right? We're taught the agreements from a very young age. And the order goes like this. Opinion, like, something's ugly, something's beautiful. Size, like it's big, it's little. Age, young or old, that kind of thing. Shape, square, round. Color, black, yellow, red, that kind of thing. Origin, British, American. Material, like polyester, styrofoam. Or purpose is the last one. Swimming, like swimming pool. Sewing, as in sewing machine. And the first letters of the qualifiers in that order spell this goofy sort of, long acronym that grammar people use called OSASCOMP, right? Opinion, size, age, shape, color, origin, material, purpose. And really, we all sort of know that. But how do we know it, right? We know what's fascinating to me about it is the fact that we all put, if you have the multiple adjectives in a sentence, you will put them in that right order. You will always, an English speaker will always put them in that, the aardvark threw an old round wooden ball at the old man or something. The square green tile, and the green square tile both sound right, but it kind of depends on where you put the emphasis, right? So it's this suggested order that we sort of learn. And and when people are describing it to you, they talk about how the sentence sounds better. Even if the sentence is never uttered aloud, it sounds better to us as we're sort of writing it and saying it aloud in our minds. So instead of, the old round vase, the old round vase and he sent fresh long stem roses. It sounds better than the round old vase and he sent long stem fresh roses. The sentence sounds better if you put the shape, before the age, right? The round antique vase sounds better than the antique round vase. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, okay, great. We all do that kind of thing. What's in it for me? I just find it fascinating. As we're going to get into more things about language, almost every English speaker will do it this way, right? And as a communicator, that sort of that lets you know that language is an agreement that we learn. And so, now we get into more language that's more useful to us. Let's talk about buzzwords, for example. There are buzzwords, and some people say, "Oh, it's always good to have the right buzzwords," and that kind of thing. But occasionally there are these lists of some of the most annoying buzzwords that come out. Some of the most bothersome buzzwords here in 2017 are things like out of pocket and leverage and synergy and out of the box. I think we hit that one on this show. And good to go. And let's take this offline. And even branding. Branding means a lot of things. Even cutting edge, those kind of things. People use buzzwords in the business world. Marketers use buzzwords because sometimes they want to sound cool. They want to sound cool. They want to sound like they're in. But what happens when you, buzzwords are like fashion, right? There's a time and a place where they are appropriate, and there's a time and a place where they are not appropriate. If you wear a big collar and bell bottoms and big old shoes, and you've got sideburns going down, you might get some looks. If it's 1975, you're in. As goofy as that looks, and let's be honest, it looks goofy. You're in because you're in the right time frame. Buzzwords are kind of the same thing, but who decides? Who decides that out of pocket was working for a few years, but now it's no longer working? Before you could use synergy. You could use synergy a few years ago. And that, but now you can't. Who makes that decision? Is it one person? Is it a group of people? Is it an agreement we all agree? Okay, well, we're all moving forward. To me, it does. It kind of it's like fashion. You sort of have to you sort of have to be at the right place at the right time to have the right outcome and the right intent. Also, people don't like LOL, standing for laughing out loud. And, I don't know. Is it completely subjective? Does everybody agree? I mean, do you, if you poll some people and say, if I say good to go, is that just really annoying to one person that's wearing a man bun and like a romper and lace shorts and that kind of crap and thinks that, and somehow in some kind of misguided, goofy ass way, they think that looks decent? Because it doesn't. If you have a man bun and you wear rompers, you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. If you have a problem with that, you can always email me. You can always find me, at scott@robertsoncom.com. That is my opinion on the subject. I don't think you're supposed to have a man bun either. I can't imagine pictures that are taken of you with your man bun right now aren't going to come back to haunt you in some horrific way later on down the line in social media. And you got to think about that. You got to think about, I'm really fortunate to have grown up in the 80s and, digital photography did not exist. And thus a lot of things that I wore to high school, because I'm fashion challenged, man. I actually shop for clothes by looking at what the mannequin's wearing and go, like, I go in the store and I go, okay, the mannequin's wearing that and that seems to work. Let's just buy everything the mannequin has on. I'm a mannequin outfit kind of shopping person. I also don't enjoy shopping for clothes. Some people do, and some people really get it. Some people can really put some crazy things forward. And then there's some really crazy people that think it's okay for men to walk around with rompers on. And that's not okay. That's definitely not okay. But back to language. We're talking about, business buzzwords. My advice on business buzzwords are kind of like my advice in fashion. If you want to be in, then you kind of have to look at what some of the trend setting, celebrities and those kind of people are saying and using and that kind of thing. And it all comes down to your objective too. But I think buzzwords are kind of fascinating in that. Let's go over a couple of things real quick. Another thing, when you're talking about buzzwords, some buzzwords are just kind of BS. They're just kind of bullcrap. Don't use those. Don't use stuff where if you don't, the point of communication is to get the message from point A to point B and get some feedback so you can improve your message and accomplish your objective. So you never want to, put a bunch of BS in front of it in a sense that you're going to interrupt your objective, which is to get the message across. And I think a lot of marketers lose that. They say, well, I have to write some stuff that sounds really good and sounds really good. Don't do that. That's stupid. Okay. I mean, there may be a time and place for doing that kind of stuff. People don't have the attention span to get to your stuff. It's just too big a risk to take. So don't do it. Formal versus informal. And I get this a lot. Is it okay to write with contractions? Is it okay to write with broken sentences? Is it okay to break the rules of the English language and sort of have some informal communication if you're an organization? I think it is. I think as in 2017, as we're standing here in 2017, September of 2017, I think it's okay to do that. I think formal language makes you less approachable. And the point of communications in this case, when we're talking about, is really to bring people closer in, to create better relationships, all that kind of thing. So I think it's perfectly fine to be informal in your communications. I know a lot of people grew up, with having English teachers smack their hands with rulers and stuff if they use contractions and broken sentences. But I hereby give you permission to say, you know what, sister, whoever, back off. We can be informal on this, and we can make this happen. Now, I got a question a while back. I think I was doing a panel or something. They talked about, is it okay to communicate with all caps ever? Well, it means something, right? It means something to us now. Our shared agreement for all caps means that you're screaming, means that you are literally screaming. So I think if you are writing a text, to someone, oh my God, there's a killer in the house, I think all caps is super appropriate for that. I think that works very well in communicating what you're trying to do. If you're trying to say we're having a sale and it's 70% off, you don't really need to say it with all caps. If you say it with all caps, to me, you look desperate. You look desperate to sell, and desperate to sell is not what you want to be in 2017. You want to attract people in, right? Like a beehive full of honey. Instead of being desperate and saying, "Oh, bees, please come into the hive," that kind of thing. You don't want to do that. But I would stay away from all caps. In most cases, most cases, I think all communication is situational, so it's always a little bit of it depends on there. But I would advise staying away from it. Now you can capitalize certain all caps, certain words if you want to punch them. Like if you're saying it out loud and you want to have some punch and in a certain word, then the all caps construction can make a lot of sense. I get the same question sometimes about exclamation points. Should we do exclamation points or no? Again, it's a bit situational. You don't want to overuse them. You don't want to go crazy with them. But if something is, an exclamatory sentence, then you want to appropriately use an exclamation point to show that, at the end, that punctuation mark shows that it has a sense of urgency. It has a greater sense of urgency than a period. And so there are certainly appropriate times that you can use it. Now, marketers tend to want to stop every sentence with an exclamation point, and that's bad. That's you're desperate at that point. That's desperate. That's needy. That's not what you want to be doing. Not okay. Don't do that. And one of the last things I want to talk about is, if you were, if you're a certain age, you may place two spaces after a period, right? Stop doing that. The absolutely appropriate agreement that we all have right now, really governed by the publishing industry and certainly governed by, social media, is that it's one space. It's one space, not two after a period, always. Okay. If you do the two space thing and you have an editor, they're going to kill you. They're literally going to come in there and they're going to strangle strangle the air out of your windpipe because you're creating a bunch more work for people that you don't need to do. Learn how to put one space after a period. One space. You look like an old fool if you put two. Okay. So join us here in what we like to call the 21st century and join us in that agreement because it's very, very important. And we're talking about language here on May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Come on back. We got a whole bunch of people who are winning and a whole bunch of people who are losing this week. We'll have some fun. See you in a few minutes.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
The Moyer Entertainment Group, in conjunction with Ableton, Taylor Guitars, and TRX Cymbals, is keeping music in our local schools and presenting local talent to the world through the Temecula Valley Music Awards. Submissions for entry into the TVMA 2017 season are now open in all genres, including a youth category for artists under 18 for the October 7th Star-Studded Awards Show, where 100% of the proceeds go towards supporting local music education in the Temecula Valley. Details, tvmawards.org.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, it's Friday, everybody, and you are so smart because you are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott. We're talking about language today and different uses of language and how it's all based on kind of shared agreements and things that annoy us about language. Cedric, what are you getting from the show so far?
Taking me back to school, Scott. We're in with Professor Scott in the house.
Exactly. I'm teaching the right way. Actually, it comes from having to edit people's stuff, and it drives me nuts when people aren't up with the latest stuff, that we all sort of agreed to. But it's kind of stupid when you think about it, because it is really just all of us together as a society going, and now we agree that we're only going to do one space after the period and not two. And then you can get really angry at people doing two, but it's like, but they don't know because maybe they missed the meeting where we agreed to that.
I always thought, when you're I was maybe 8th grade reading through the grammar book, I always figured there's probably some secret society meeting of these old people who we're going to decide this today. And I always thought that's how it worked. But then, I grew up, become a semi-functioning adult and realize it doesn't really work that way.
That's right. There's not, it's just the people. The people have spoken.
Yeah.
Well, let's dig into who's winning and losing this week. Oh man, I think we have to start with this week's big loser. Of course, is Equifax. Talked about it a lot on the show last week, and as I mentioned before, when you have a crisis in communications and PR, what you want to do is you want to get into a room and figure out how bad is this crisis, how many mistakes have we made, and how do we disclose it all at once. Because otherwise you have a slow leak of all the stupid things that you've done. And that just it's like Samsung. It's just like every week there's a new phone exploding. If a phone exploded tomorrow, you would bet money it was Samsung that did it. We have no trust of that brand. Trust in that brand is gone, because of all the exploding phones and phones that caught on fire and everything else. Well, Equifax is the same thing. Here's where they're losing this week. And it's, you guys have to report on this stuff, but they just can't seem to get it right. They've been sending the victims of their massive data breach to a bogus website that shared a similar address with the one it set up to help victims. They revealed that, they are sending people to, they set up a website called Equifax or Equifax Security 2017.com, and it helped consumers check whether their data was part of the breach. Well, they directed consumers to that site as opposed to a page on its standard Equifax.com. It raised a bunch of red flags because it increased the chances that consumers hunting for or being lured to the safe breach would be misdirected to a malicious site with a similar address. This developer, Nick Sweeting, created the site securityequifax2017.com, a simple inversion of the two words. And then Equifax's own support team directed consumers to that URL over Twitter. So it made it so easy. They were directing people to the wrong thing. It's just you just kind of shake your head. They're trying to inform people and say, did we release your data or not? And then they sent people to a bogus site that got set up. It's like all you have to do is have the right site, listed in all your customer support documentation, and say, and this is the site we're sending people to. We're not sending them to the other site because that would be stupid, Anyway, Equifax, get it together, man. We're tired of reporting on every instance of stupidity that comes out of your organization, and you reach this tipping point pretty soon where people are just like, and now we're done with you. And now it's over for you. Goodbye. So, Equifax, don't direct people to a bogus website. You're losing. Winning this week, Google and HTC signed a $1.1 billion cooperation agreement to really try to boost Google's hardware game. Now, is this an acquisition? Some people have asked. Kinda. I mean, it's, I'm not an expert in acquisitions, but it looks like HTC is getting $1.1 billion in cash from Google, and Google gets the non-exclusive license to HTC's intellectual property, and some of the HTC's its employees, are now going to be working for Google. To me, I mean, that feels like an acquisition. I don't know what we're short of in terms of the acquisition, but they're calling it a cooperation agreement. But I would say winning, because Google's hardware hasn't gotten rave reviews, and HTC's usually does. So that could be a very good cooperative partnership, moving forward for Google. Still, I think Apple dominates the mobile phone, the smartphone market by 90%, and everybody else splits the remaining 10. But still interesting, and I'm going to put them in winning because I think that's a good partnership. Although if they actually acquired the company, they should just say that. That's what I would say. Who's losing to me? Speaking of Apple, who's losing? It's really Tim Cook. Tim Cook has done several interviews where he's talking about the iPhone X's $1,000 price tag. And basically, my PR advice to Tim Cook and Apple would be, you guys need to be quiet. You need to shut up about it, because every time you have a story that talks about why it's not a big deal to have $1,000 price tag, what's the reporter going to do? The reporter's going to, and not even the reporter, what's the audience going to do? Well, the audience is going to say, well, of course you say that. You're rich. You have a giant spaceship building. You have, trillions and trillions of dollars. You have all these kind of things. It directs all the sort of anger. When you're a multi-billionaire and you are in the richest company in the world, you cannot relate to the money problems that people have purchasing your product, right? And you should really shut up about it. You don't see any other premium brands defending the price of their stuff. You don't see the CEO, of Rolls-Royce going, yeah, it's I'll tell you, it's $350,000, but that sucker's worth it. It's like they know it's worth it. The people that want to buy it, they know. They've already convinced themselves it's worth it. You don't need to say anything. It's inappropriate. Stop it. Steve Jobs would never defend the price of his stuff. He'd be like, yeah, and you're damn lucky to get it. There was an arrogance about Steve Jobs that was actually pretty good from a branding perspective, because he basically said, look, if you have to ask how much it is, then you shouldn't be here, and that works for some of the folks, for the mindset of people for Apple, because they're like, hey, remember their what's their tagline? You're more powerful than you think. Well, they already think that they're powerful, and they already think that they're super powerful, and they already think that these products make them more powerful. So all Apple has to do is just say, yeah, people are going to buy it. People are going to buy it. And from a communications perspective, Tim Cook needs to shut up. And he really needs to shut up about immigration. He continues to talk about the Dreamers program and everything else. And this is what I would say to a senior executive talking about immigration. This is a no-win scenario for you. Because do you recall the election map by any chance? Yeah. So everybody in California is going, rah, rah, rah. Yeah, Tim Cook's against immigration. Remember the rest of the country? What color it was on the map? Yeah. I'll give you a second. Remember the map? You just pissed all those people off. And that's a no-win for you. There's no win. Stop it. It's not your business. It's none of your business. And it's going to damage your brand, and Apple's so good at branding. I think that Tim Cook's PR people need to take him aside and say, let's be quiet for a while. Well, how can we be more quiet? Because that would be some really, really good advice. I like Apple. I want to see them continue to put out good products and stuff. I think when companies get involved in in political debates and things like that, you're going to end up losing. You're going to end up losing. There's no upside for you. There's nothing but downside. So stop it, and don't ever do another story about justifying the price of your product. If you believe it, it's great. You can build the brand around it, and the tribe of people will find you. You don't need to tell us how it's easy for everybody to afford and that kind of thing. When you're a billionaire, it's like, shut up. So Tim Cook, losing. Be quiet and you'll be winning. I like that. Okay, Amazon. Amazon customers can now return things for free at Kohl's or Whole Foods. Now, this is really, really interesting. Amazon is just, they're such an interesting company because one of the if there is a hurdle in deterrence of buying something online, it's the fact that you can't easily return it. But now Amazon's starting to forge these partnerships with brick and mortar retailers where they can return stuff. They can return online purchases in person. Man, that and obviously you would expect that at Whole Foods. But let's say Amazon owns Whole Foods. But anything you buy off Amazon, you're going to be able to return at a Whole Foods. So they can turn this grocery store network that they bought into Amazon fulfillment centers. And if you can return stuff there, then what's the likelihood that you can get stuff there too? So really, really fascinating. And I'm going to put it in Major League Winning because this is a company that doesn't have to do anything, and they're continuing to find new ways to kind of innovate. And in exchange, Kohl's is really hoping that some of the people that they draw into the stores will be tempted to buy something there kind of along the way. And an interesting survey bullet in that news story said that around 70% of customers tend to make new purchases in the course of returning items in stores. Isn't that interesting? So you go back to return something, and 70% of people end up making a new purchase in the course of returning an item in the store. That's really fascinating. And if you're paying attention to that bullet, then obviously it makes sense for you to form a partnership with Amazon to be a return center in their store as well. That's what I'd say. I put Amazon firmly in winning for that. And also I would say Kohl's is very smart for forging that partnership. Kohl's could very easily say, oh, these guys are competing with us. They're going to put us out of business, blah, 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 blah. That kind of thing. And they're like, no, we'll partner with Amazon.com every day and twice on Sunday. Smart, innovative. Love it. Keep it up. Good job. Let's talk about another winning. Snickers is really winning on social media. They really did some amazing media planning for the best use of social media was as a category in some of these Ad Week awards and those kind of things. So when they were evolving their longtime tagline, "You're not you when you're hungry," they basically linked the public's general irritability as measured by internet chatter with the price of Snickers. The more outraged people got online, the cheaper they made the candy at Australian 7-Eleven stores. Isn't this fascinating? Fascinating, fascinating. They used social sentiment, and they were connected with this creative idea and this kind of value proposition. And then they were able to execute this. They created this custom-built algorithm, which they called the Hunger Rhythm. Smart. And they were able to analyze 14,000 social posts a day and sort of even interpret slang and sarcasm in Australia, to take a kind of a virtual fist-shaking temperature of the internet. And then based on that, they would send mobile-fed coupons for Snickers and direct people to the nearest 7-Eleven. It sounds like you're really angry, angry because your team lost to a team that isn't your team, well, then, you deserve to have you're not you when you're hungry, that kind of thing. Really, really smart and really, really sophisticated. I mean, the promotion updated every 10 minutes, 144 times a day, leading to the price of a Snickers bar to change more than 5,000 times during a 5-week period. How unreal is it that they were able to, execute a program of that complexity? Very, very smart. And they got people to, obviously people tried to band together and kind of drive down the price point, but there was a cap that they could do it. I think this campaign is winning, and this is a really good way. Obviously, first of all, it's a brilliant idea. Second of all, it's brilliant execution, a brilliant way to use things that are going on in social media to drive point of purchase, for your product. Very, very smart, and very, very cool. So Snickers, you're winning. I think we could all be winning pretty soon because there are a lot of conversations about, is it time to rethink the 8-hour workday? Americans aren't strangers to working long hours. 40% of U.S. employees regularly put in over 50 hours per work week, while 20% top more than 60 hours. Now, 40 hours of work per week sounds like a lot more reasonable than 50 or 60. But putting in an 8-hour day may not end up in you being all that productive, according to some latest studies. Basically, the survey was conducted, there was a survey that was conducted in the 50s, and scientists who spent 25 hours at work per week were no more productive than those who only spent 5. Not only that, but scientists who worked 35 hours a week were half as productive as those who put in 20 hours a week. So, and that's an old survey, of course, but there's a lot of chatter about this, about what does our workday kind of look like, and what's the most productive way to have it. Obviously, if you have to be somewhere and sit in a chair for 8 hours a day and that kind of thing, or would you be just as productive if you had to do it for 4? A lot of people in these type of articles and studies say that 4 hours might be the ideal amount of time to focus on your key responsibilities. And giving your brain some time off is essential to your ultimate success. So if you, I've seen all kinds of studies when I used to run a PR agency in particular that said if you work more than 50 or 60 hours a week, there's a real decrease in your creativity. You're just not able to be as creative as you could be if you're out in the world. So I always used to make sure that my teams were out and experiencing the world, because then you're going to come back and you're going to be able to influence the world a lot better if you're, part of it. That's what I would say. So anyway, I'm going to put that in. We could all be winning very soon with a much better work week. And the last thing I just want to hit real quick is that Instagram automatically made an ad that said, "I will rape you." Instagram made an advertisement, like one of these automated creative advertisements for a person. It was of a Guardian reporter's post that documented a threatening email that she received. The message that they served up to their customer said, among other things, I will rape you before I kill you, you filthy whore." The reporter, Olivia Solon, discovered the ad when it was pushed to her sister. God. This is why everyone's like, "Oh, marketing automation, it's great. It's fantastic." This is why you want a thinking human being person reading stuff that you're creating. Algorithms can do a lot of things, but if you start serving up ads to people of interesting, posts that have made it to their feed, and the post says, "I will rape you before I kill you, you filthy whore," you're probably not building positive marketing relationships. I urge you to check that story out at fastcompany.com. It's kind of fascinating. And that's who's winning and losing this week on May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Come on back. I'm going to give you some tips to make language work for you.
I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. You are back with May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader on Music Biz Talk. I am Scott, hanging out with Cedric today, and we just did Who's Winning and Losing. Cedric, what struck you today?
I'm going to ignore the last story. that struck me pretty weird, but Amazon's really just killing it. I feel like every 2 or 3 weeks you come up with an Amazon update that just blows me out of the water.
So smart. And Kohl's is so smart for partnering in with them too, especially given the fact that they're like, hey, you may be buying all your stuff from Amazon, but if you're returning it here, then we're going to get some sales when you return it.
Exactly. No, I mean it's
so smart.
They're making power moves to set themselves up for like from an infrastructure standpoint. This is like a service to Amazon customers, but it's building a bigger infrastructure all in one fell swoop, and that's crazy.
Yeah. I remember, I'm old enough that I remember, when Amazon launched, and as part of the .com bubble, I was working in high tech PR, at the time, and a lot of people thought, that's never going to work. People got that's Amazon.com. That's going to be a flash in the pan. That's going to die off. That's not going to work. And then every single time, in Amazon's evolution, people have sort of underestimated them and said that about them, and then. Amazon, came out with Prime, and people were like, "Oh, nobody's going to pay them for shipping privileges," and that it's like 90% of people have Prime, and now they're this huge player, on the content side of things as well, and they just become this huge, world changing force, that and as you said, they keep making these, awesome, brainy, moves.
Oh yeah,
that are wild, things like, Whole Foods, and then they cut all the prices at Whole Foods because, I don't shop at Whole Foods because, I'm not going to pay a 75% markup for produce.
Yep.
Even if they say, "Oh, it's better for you. It's like, well, you could be lying, and then this is like the emperor's new clothes,
Well, I'm broke, so.
Exactly. Whole Foods is not. I don't find there's a little, it's Mother's Market's one I was thinking. Occasionally, one of my colleagues will say, "Let's go have breakfast at Mother's Market." It is the most tasteless, devoid of taste crap I've ever had in my entire life. No. I mean, it's just, it's like, let's go to Denny's. At least, sure, we may need some Pepto-Bismol afterwards, but it's gonna be a better meal. It's gonna have some taste to it.
Yeah.
I'm not a big organic food dude, I got to say. Well, let's dig right back into. So we're talking about language today. We're talking about how to use language. And in segment 3, I always like to give you, the listening people, some tips to help you, regarding, and in this case regarding language. So my first tip is to when you're considering what language you're going to use, think about them first. What's really going to get it done. If you are targeting, millennials or younger type of audience, do you really want to try to sound like them, or is that going to make you sound stupid? And, do you just want to be clear and be you, to me, that it depends on your brand. It depends on, how you're positioned. There's a lot of it depends kind of variables that kind of can affect that decision. But I don't think enough communicators think about the audience. They don't think about the audience first in terms of designing a message. They think kind of, they kind of think about themselves first. They think, that sounds good to me, and that kind of thing. It's like a band that goes in and says, "Oh, we record for ourselves and we hope the fans come along," and that kind of thing. Well, that's great. If you're an artist and you have the creative, freedom to go in and make a record for yourself and hope that people come along, fantastic. But in a marketing capacity, our goal is to get the arrow from the sender to the target, with as little interference as possible and get it to stick, right? So we want to think about the target first, and we want to make sure that we're not just making a record to please ourselves, that we're making a record that's going to please them and really going to get something done that we're trying to get done through communications. To me, that's always the question that drives it. What's going to get it done? What's going to get the job done? If I'm communicating with the press and my client sends me a bunch of stuff that says cutting edge, effective, robust technology solution, that all my friends in the press will, politely accept that press release, and then they'll go through it with a red pen and they'll just cut all your bull crap out. One red line at a time. That's what they do, right? I went to journalism school. I was taught how to redline all of your bull crap out of journalistic pieces. It's one of the first things they teach you. It's called here's the red pen. Let's cut through the crap and get the story told. Okay. So, and a lot of clients don't get this because they think, oh, well, we'll put this out there and this is going to make us sound better. Stop it. Okay. Stop it. If you're writing something for the press, then let's make it useful for the press. Let's make it useful. Let's make it clear. Let's make it concise. Let's make it factual. Let's make it accurate. Let's make it short. Let's not go on with a quote that's like 15 lines long from the founder. No one cares. No one cares. That guy's wife doesn't care. So stop it. Don't put things in your communication that's not going to get the objective done. Be objective focused in your communication. Really, really important. And sometimes when things get written by committees, this happens. Oh, well, Bob from technology, department thought that we needed to mention this award. And Bob and Janie, the CEO's assistant, thought that it was be important to put this in. Whatever. You're the expert in communications. All those people are just tourists in this world, right? So make sure that you exercise that power and do your job for your company. Do your job and make sure that no one on the receiving end of the communication gives a flying crap about anybody in your organization and what they think about something. They care about themselves, their own needs, and what's going on in their world. And if you can make something interesting to them, then maybe they'll let you in, right? And that's why I don't advocate, by the way, I don't like to write press releases by committees because we have a bunch of non-experts digging in, and they're going to make the process take longer. And don't forget, I charge by the hour, so you're literally costing yourself money. And second, it screws it up. It screws it up, and it messes up the objective, which my firm often has, which is let's get this covered. It's like, well, the more stuff you put in front of PR to get the message out there, the harder it's going to be to get that objective done. So let's not do that. Let's be clear. Let's do all those kind of things. That's tip number one. Tip number two, it's really important to know the rules of, the English language. We talked about. Know the rules first, but then you can break them. I break the laws of communication, the rules of communications all the time. I start sentences in mid-sentence. I do things with hyphens. I do things when they make sense, when it's appropriate, when it gets the thought across, when it is more conversational. You ever heard people say that somebody's writing is conversational, right? If your writing is conversational, then it probably isn't really formal, and it probably isn't really like sort of tight, because we don't talk that way. And if you do talk that way, you have very few friends. You definitely don't have a girlfriend, and you have no friends. Okay? It's super, super clear. People don't like to hang out with people who, utter the king's English, because they're tight, all the time. It's just, people don't hang out with people like that, and you're not like that. And regular people aren't like that anyway, even if you can do it at times. And believe me, there are times when you want to be able to, really be extraordinarily eloquent. And, there are certainly times when it's appropriate. But most of the time, it's like, you're wearing jeans. It's fine to wear jeans. Your communication can wear jeans too. You know what I mean? Be casual with that stuff sometimes, but know those rules, and then feel free to break them. Feel free to break them. That's what I say. My tip number 3, avoid all jargon and buzzwords. Always. We talked about a lot of buzzwords, and we talked about how buzzwords are sort of in a, in kind of a time hourglass, right? Like, different points in time, certain buzzwords are appropriate. I think it's good to avoid it altogether. If you don't have to use jargon and buzzwords, you're going to have a much greater opportunity to get your message across. You always want to give your message the test of, would someone, would your mom understand this? And especially tech companies out there, because you guys write some indecipherable crap sometimes. Okay. And it's like, would your mom understand this? If she doesn't have a degree from MIT, would she understand what you just said here? And if the answer is no, then it's like, why is this written down somewhere then? If the point is if no one's going to understand it, then it might as well be written in invisible ink. It might as well not exist. Why did you take the time to write it down if you're going to use a bunch of words that nobody understands? Watch out for jargon. Some people ask me sometimes, they say, well, I'm pretty close to it, so how do I know if I'm using jargon? Fantastic question. And a fantastic use of what we like to call other people who read your stuff. Get some people that you trust in your organization or outside your organization to review things. If you're scared something your organization has produced is too technical, run it by somebody who is not very technical and ask them this question when they're done. Did you get it? Spit it back to me. I want to make sure you understood it. If they can't spit it back to you and get the point, rewrite it. Absolutely rewrite it. Use other people and do your little mini test groups if you can. Sometimes you can send multiple versions of a communication out with different different subject headlines, different copy, those kind of things. I mean, that kind of stuff can all be useful too when you're kind of in the marketing laboratory and you're figuring things out. I mean, believe me, I get that. I do that. But have some trusted people that you can run things by. It may be some people on your marketing team. It may be your PR agency. I run interference for my clients a lot. They'll send something to me and say, "Does this make sense? What did you get out of this?" They're trying to test whether their ability to put this together. Did it get the arrow to the target or not? Always ask people to get not just this question. You read it. Did you like it? Well, who gives a crap whether they liked it or not? Here's what we care about. We care about, did you understand it? Did you get it? And then they say, oh, yeah, I understood it because like the emperor's new clothes. Oh, yeah, he's wearing a suit and he's wearing pants and that kind of thing. I said, great. What color is it? Ask some clarifying questions. Ask them to tell you, ask them to come back to you and say, this is what I got from it. This is what I understand this to mean. And if it's wrong, then you need to rewrite it, right? Avoid your jargon and buzzwords. Those things are killers. They're absolute killers. They also kill your credibility. The point of communications is to bring people in closer and build stronger relationships. You don't want a bunch of words that make you sound clever or smart or blah, 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 or what make you sound whatever you think they make you sound and get in the way of that objective. Okay? And on that subject, number 4, watch out for TLAs, which stands for 3-letter acronyms, or any acronyms, to be honest. Spell out your acronyms. People may not know what you know. They may take the acronym to mean something completely different. Spell that stuff out. Be really clear, or don't use it if you don't have to. Sometimes people use, acronyms because, they themselves say, well, I'm a smart person and, I don't have time to write all these words out and yada, yada, yada. And so I just need to kind of do this in shorthand. Remember what the purpose of our communication is. It is not to do things quick and easy, right? That's how you bake a cake. That's how you clean a toilet bowl. That is not how we run organizational communications. We don't go for the quick and easy approach. We go for the what the hell works approach. What works? We are in the what works, what gets the arrow to the target business. That's the business that we're in, you know. And honestly, I am tactic agnostic, and you know, when it comes to whatever works, that's the job. That is the job right there. So make sure you don't get confused as to what the job is, and make sure that you, again, my tip number 4 is just make sure that you don't use a lot of acronyms. Spell those things out, and especially the first time you use them, spell them out. You know, and I've heard some people say, "Well, everybody in our industry knows this. Everybody in the music products industry knows MI. You know, stands for." Did you know in the music products industry there's an abbreviation called MI that there's at least 4 different interpretations of what it means? Yeah. Oh, everybody understands it, but everybody has a different understanding of what it is. So don't say it. Just say the music products industry. Just say, whatever your acronyms are in your industry, just watch out. You know, sometimes we use them to kind of, if we're speaking to a group, to kind of, you know, hey, we all have this kind of like secret language and we're all part of the same club and blah, blah, blah. But you're always going to be better off to be clear rather than to try to create, you know, a secret decoder ring, a language for you and your buddies. Really important. And tip number 5 in your language is always be real. You know, please don't be full of it, and don't lie. Be real. Equifax isn't real, right? It's a whole lot of stupid, and all of their statements about it just make you not trust them that much more. I feel like communications needs a gigantic kick in the butt in terms of saying, we don't believe you. We don't believe you. When you say big, you know, fluffy statements and you make up words and you create all this kind of crap, you're distancing yourself from us. You're not bringing yourself in closer. Don't be real. Don't be full of it. Very important in your language. You know, what have we learned today, folks? You know, language is complex, and we use it kind of without thinking, which isn't always such a great thing. Hello, Instagram. Used correctly, the right language can educate, it can entertain, it can build strong relationships. The misuse of language, you know, results in broken relationships, broken trust, and just a whole lot of bad stuff for the brand. Marketers need to be commanders of language, absolute wordsmiths, and help your companies communicate more effectively and with less, you know, BS and fluff and acronyms and buzzwords than ever before. Well, rock on, marketing fans. That's the show for this week. This has been Scott Robertson, host of May the Best Brand Win on Intertalk Radio, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Rock on.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?